and I am not sure for attendees on here if you can also hear Frank. Say something to me, Frank, and let me make sure.
Okay, good morning, Kim.
Okay, well, good morning. Okay, I hear you. And for everyone on, thank you very much for your patience. I'm going to start again and go through the agenda. Basically what we're going to cover today is some of the history of IBM's positioning of DB2 versus Oracle. We're going to talk about the 3 critical qualifiers that organizations need to assess and evaluate before they decide to make a move. Go through a little bit of information about IBM's migration process and the tools that they have, as well as cost estimators and some of the factors that are considered. I want to make sure everyone that's on here, if you're considering a move to DB2, that you understand that IBM has different versions and packages of DB2, just as Oracle has for Oracle. And you want to match and evaluate, get to something that's similar to what you have from both a price and functionality perspective. And then the next steps. I am joined on the call today with my colleague Frank Fillmore, who is the president and founder of the Fillmore Group. And Frank is going to go through some of the technical portions of the presentation. But basically our goal today is to make sure that the attendees have 3 takeaways, and I want to make sure everyone understands whether or not your organization really is a good candidate to move to DB2, and I want you to have an understanding of the migration process as well as a next step for your organization. It's easy to say, hey, it's a good idea, but what do you do next? So at this point, Frank, I'm going to turn it over to you to go through some of the history of IBM's positioning of DB2 versus Oracle.
Okay, and you got faint there just at the end, so whatever you were doing earlier is giving us better sound. Good morning, everyone. This is Frank Fillmore of the Fillmore Group. Thank you, Kim, for the introduction. IBM has decided probably back in 2010, maybe 2011, to take Oracle on head-on with enabling the PL/SQL API natively within the DB2 database. So this isn't an emulator. This isn't any sort of translation of PL/SQL into the DB2 SQL syntax. This is actually native Oracle support. They made changes in the way that locking occurs, optimistic locking versus pessimistic locking. And so IBM has been very aggressive in terms of Oracle's install base. And if you read the Wall Street Journal yesterday, you could see that Oracle sales are flat, especially for their core database products. Don't know how much of that is attributable to the IBM initiatives, but the IBM company has said, there is a finite number of customers for relational databases. This is a fairly mature market for a product that's been around for nearly 30 years now. If we're going to grow our business, somebody else's piece of the pie needs to shrink. And so IBM has been going after high-profile customers. At the Break Free Forum that you see there in 2012, IBM presented JP Morgan Chase as a named customer who talked about their experience in moving the Chase.com online banking application from Oracle to DB2 and the success that they had there. And you want me to go ahead and continue, Kim?
Oh, yes. I think some of this stuff is stuff that you're very familiar with, and I think some of the information in this presentation, I mean, everyone should know some of the slides in this deck. IBM's been at this for 3 years. Some of this information it's better than it is in the slides.
Right, and so the idea is that IBM would say on a vanilla apples to apples comparison basis. Now, part of the problem with this is pricing is so variable. It's like seats on an airplane. No 2 customers pay the same amount, and so it's tough to make cost comparisons. But on a list price basis, IBM's DB2 can cost a third as much as an equivalent Oracle stack, including all the feature functionality that IBM bundles into the database that Oracle charges separately for features like compression and things like that. IBM believes, and this is a little bit fuzzier, but there have been studies by another consulting group, Triton, did a white paper on the cost of people, FTE, full-time equivalent people, to be able to manage DB2 databases. So one of the anecdotal evidences of a customer that migrated from Oracle to DB2, they used to say that it took about a week to prepare an RMAN backup of a database and all the steps that they needed to go through to do that. And when they ran the DB2 backup command for the first time, they were surprised. They thought they had done something wrong or they had missed some steps because that was it. So the people productivity is very important. In bullet number 3, you can see that the storage costs are reduced based on IBM's superior compression. When we start talking about terabytes and yottabytes and zettabytes of data, disk storage becomes a critical factor. Although the price has been dropping over time, the amount of data that is being stored is accelerating faster than the price has been dropping. So finding a compression algorithm that, number 1, doesn't eat up a lot of CPU, and number 2, saves on storage costs is very important. IBM touts its benchmarks. One of the metrics that IBM used a little while ago was the number of days that a particular database vendor held the title for a particular benchmark, the TPC benchmarks that have been around for years. And the idea was, a new vendor comes out with a new version of the database, and they immediately run their benchmarks, and then they claim the title. So the question is, how sustainable is that? But DB2 at the largest SAP Oracle customer, DB2 was up to 9 times faster, and on average 40% faster in terms of processing the same workload. DB2 has lots of availability solutions, things like HADR for near sync availability of databases within the same data center, closely attached. In terms of high availability for geographically dispersed data centers, IBM has a product called Q-Replication that is now being tested out at the Chinese Construction Bank in China, obviously. And Dan Wardman, who runs the IBM Silicon Valley Lab, where DB2 for ZOS is developed. DB2 for ZOS, different platform that we're talking about here, but uses the same Q-replication technology, said that what they're doing is they're pressing up against the laws of physics and the speed of light. They're getting data around just about as fast as you possibly can through memory and electronic wires. So on a virtually instantaneous basis, you can have multiple database servers all in the same state in terms of the data content. And then in terms of scalability, IBM's PureScale, now known as Pure Data System for Transactions, offers, again, the same technology that's available in DB2 for ZOS, the multi-node shared disk implementation of DB2. Why don't you go ahead, Kim?
And Frank, if you'd like, I can go through these. Can you hear me okay?
You sound good. Yeah, just stay close to the mic. Whatever you're doing, it's working.
Okay. There are 3 different qualifications that we've run into with customers in different situations, and we feel are the most important qualifiers when an Oracle customer is considering a move to DB2. And the first one is whether or not your organization is running any Oracle developed applications. If you're running anything in the eBusiness suite, IBM is not going to be able to legally let you migrate that application over to DB2. And that's just, unfortunately, it's a quick, we have a problem here. And I think it's something, if you're running an application, if you're just running one component of the eBusiness suite, you may be able to find a similar application, but understand that that's going to make your migration a little more difficult. So it's definitely something that you have to give some thought to before you get started. The second one is that because a lot of the justification for making a move from one database technology to another is, of course, based on the finances, it's important to us to know that you're willing to share your Oracle costs with us. It's tough to say we can beat the price, and IBM is being extremely aggressive on pricing these days, but we can't be aggressive if we don't know what we're competing with. We can tell you what the list price is, we can tell you what a 40% discount is, but if we don't know what you're paying, we can't tell you we can really do better. And then the third one is simply, are you ready? I think that a lot of organizations have to factor in things like when their subscription and support is renewed, and when the organization, I mean, if you're a retail organization and you shut down after Labor Day through the holidays, I mean, there are things like that, simple timing factors. And so it's never, I don't believe it's ever too soon to get started. Anyone who's been through a migration, I never hear anybody say, oh, we should have given it less time. But if you're ready, it's important. everyone went through this first poll question and was very kind to answer, even though apparently you couldn't hear anything. So we're going to skip it right now, and I'm going to have Frank continue on and talk a little bit about the transition process.
Very good, Kim. The MEET tool, the application code assessment, is sort of the first step. There are a couple of ways to do this. First of all, the PLSQL enablement is something that a lot of people are from Missouri on. They want somebody to show them just exactly how their code is going to interact with the DB2 database. Moving data from an Oracle database to DB2 is a fairly simple process. Getting an application to work, the existing Oracle application to work, is a bit harder, but in a lot of cases not terribly so. So the idea is that we want to do an assessment. This is a downloadable feature for free, available from IBM, that will actually perform a code assessment that will validate what statements are going to run against the DB2 database within your stored procedures, within your application code, and which may cause a problem, which you may be using some unsupported syntax. That's the 2% of the 98% that's not supported. But identifying those early, and so you can get a quick and dirty assessment without having to run any applications, without having to move any data, without having to install DB2 at all. You can get the overview of what it's going to look like in terms of making that work. And IBM has had tools like this, migration toolkit. IBM has been doing this sort of analysis on other vendor workloads for a long time. And then the next step is the business value assessment. So IBM has basically made this not a technology play, but a CFO play. The idea is that what are you paying? And it's basically the total cost of ownership for the database. But what we can do is we can analyze the license costs. Again, if you're willing to share them, as Kim said, of what you're paying for your Oracle database, we can do a comparison for what the equivalent licensing cost would be for the same feature functionality within the DB2 database to carry the same workload in order to see if it makes financial sense to make the move, at least from a licensing standpoint. And as many of you know, working with the Oracle database, Oracle steeply discounts the initial license charge, but rarely discounts the subscription and support, and that becomes very expensive over the life of owning the product. And there is a bit of lock-in there in terms of licensing. So we want to be able to analyze what your license terms and conditions are, as well as the cost of the license, to see when a transition would make sense from a financial standpoint. The next step is a migration plan. So the one example that I can give you, a customer had come to IBM very interested in moving the first database. You don't want to try to boil the ocean, but they wanted to move the first database, which was relatively isolated within their application. It was an authorization database for people logging on. Basically, it just checked user ID and password and returned back to the application an authentication token. So this was relatively isolated, and so from start to finish, from first day of employees being focused on this, they had done a POC and they had done some tests. But the actual migration of the database to new servers on a new operating system, with the data being moved, with high availability being installed, with the application being tested and validated against the new database, all that took about 3 months. We were able to do the first database migration in 90 days, which I was pretty impressed by. And that was a combination of IBM and vendor, IBM and customer resources. And so you need to come up with a migration plan. That gives you sort of a scope, but all of the steps in between of making sure that the high availability is there, the backup and recovery steps are well known and well understood in practice, so that if something bad happens, you can do that. The next step, the training and the mentoring and the skills enablement. So what are the differences in I do RMAN today, I have to do backups tomorrow. How do they work? How do we practice that for recovery? I want to do something in an Oracle database. What is the equivalent function in DB2? Is there an equivalent function? How do we make all those things work? So there's actually some training, DB2 database administrator training for Oracle DBAs, to step you through that. Here's how you do it in Oracle. This is what happens in DB2. And then any ongoing DB2 support, and that can be in a variety of that can be delivered in a variety of ways. You obviously get defect support from IBM for your subscription and support. You can get assistance from users groups and chat sessions and things like that. Listservs that enable you to ask questions. So there are a variety of means of which you can get ongoing care and feeding. I just participated in the Central Ohio DB2 users group yesterday. It was their relaunch. It had been a group that had been dormant for a while, and they had 50 people in the room in Dublin, Ohio. So you can get that sort of ongoing, what's new, what's next, how do I do my job better? Kim? So this is the 98% compatible Oracle SQL and PLSQL with IBM. This was originally enabled in DB2 version 9.7. What we see here are the fixed pack 5 statistics. So you can see across a range of industries and solutions and countries. So this is pretty broad based. This is not sort of a one shot. We took a vanilla application and compared it to the PLSQL and the embedded SQL dialect that Oracle uses to DB2 and said, yep, it works. We'd say an average of 98.6 of the code is immediately transferable to DB2. There may be some modifications. You have to do some code changes in a few places. We saw some really arcane stuff that little used legacy code but overall pretty compatible. So you can see there is a detailed analysis. You can see from the MEET tool. This is the output of the tool that we talked about before. So you can see that the number of statements that fall within a certain category and the average time per statement run against the database, and then the total number of minutes and hours that these statements would execute, and then any exceptional conditions, the part over on the far right that would require some sort of intervention or remediation. So in order to test your application compatibility within the presentation, which will be posted on the website after this webinar, the link is embedded in this. You can also search DeveloperWorks, www.ibm.com/DeveloperWorks, and look for the MEET DB2 tool. You can download it for free and test it. So you can kick the tires today and find out how compatible your existing application code would be with DB2.
Yes, and I wanted to reiterate, you can't run it with an Oracle application because it's a violation of the license agreements, of Oracle's license agreements, but you can run just about any other application against it. And if you have an application that's from a third-party vendor that you don't know has been certified on DB2, you could certainly give it a try, and if it's close, we can see if we can't get it certified for you.
Yeah, and what Kim is referring to is that there is the IBM lab is actually certified third-party vendor applications, and so they have a list of applications that have already been migrated or ported or run by other customers, and so your application may already be on that list. And so if there's a specific app, not homegrown code, we're seeing a mixture of Oracle apps, as Kim said, not supported. Third-party vendor apps, which might be supported, and then homegrown code, which is probably the largest base. So go ahead, Kim. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, that's fine. So then the next thing in the transition process that we wanted to make everyone aware of is that IBM they have a very fancy tool called the Business Value Assessment, which will go through a zillion different metrics and give you a very fancy report about how much money you'll save if you move to DB2. There also are some simpler spreadsheets and other tools that we can use very quickly just to take a look and compare license costs and to compare people costs, and also some performance metrics. And the output for reports like that, I mean, this is not the fancy tool, but this is basically going to give you over time what your total cost of ownership is, and hopefully, one hopes, at the bottom, as you see in the bottom right, you'll see the percentages of savings in terms of dollars, what your organization is going to save. Very powerful if you have to take this to your management team and do a justification as to why you want to make the move. So the other thing that I wanted to make everyone aware of, particularly anyone that has an Oracle ULA, is that IBM has announced just this past month for business partners the IBM Unlimited License Agreement, the IULA, which basically is it's considered the same, similar to an Oracle ULA, except that IBM is willing to make a few more commitments than Oracle is in terms of ceilings and limitations on price increases. They want to give customers that are moving from Oracle to DB2 price certainty. If you're going to make the investment in IBM technology and you don't want to have 2 years from now find out that, oh my gosh, you used 20% more, so you're going to pay 50% more, that's what the IULA is supposed to address. It is not for small customers. IBM does not want to be issuing IULAs of less than $500,000 for new licenses. IBM also does not want to be issuing IULA agreements to existing DB2 customers because IBM has what they call an enterprise license agreement already in place for those customers. However, since IBM is being so aggressive right now about trying to move workloads from Oracle to DB2, if you're interested, I'm sure that someone at IBM will be willing to talk to you. So Frank, can you talk a little bit about the IDMT and the transition process?
Okay, sure. So now we've just to checkpoint where we are. We've looked at our application code and we found that there is a great deal of compatibility in the high 90%. We've assessed the sort of manual intervention. We've determined how long that'll take and how much that'll cost. We've looked at the business value assessment. We've seen what it'll cost in terms of licensing agreement. The savings will pay for the code modification, and the next step is the migration process itself. How do we get to this new state where our applications are running successfully against a DB2 database rather than the Oracle database that they're running against today? So the first step is to consider support renewal dates. That's going to be part of the timing. You don't want to be paying for two databases if you can avoid it. When you buy your new automobile, you want to make sure that the leases run out on the old automobile. You don't want to have two cars sitting in the driveway and you're only driving one. And we can help you with that. There is actually one of the folks who are participating on this call today is a specialist within IBM, a guy named Tony Mancini, who is an expert in Oracle licensing and can help with timing as to when to make the transition. And we can get Tony to help us on any customer engagement that it would make sense. So the next step is what is the technical transition? I said that we're able to move the data, and that's a pretty simple process from an Oracle to DB2 database. We have support for Oracle native data types. You actually, when you create a new DB2 database, you can specify whether you want Oracle compatibility and support for the number data type and varchar 2 and things like that. That still may take some time. I mean, the physical act of moving terabytes of data from one database server to another takes some time. We had a customer that I had mentioned earlier estimated that it was going to take 5 days to get all of the data out of the Oracle database into the DB2 database and to a state where the applications could run against them. All of the referential integrity constraints had been validated. All of the unique indexes made sure we didn't have any duplicates. All that sort of stuff takes time when we're talking about lots of data, and they couldn't take a 5-day outage in order to do that. This is a 24/7 by 365 application. And so we have techniques available using replication where you can actually have a near zero downtime migration. What we did, and subject of another presentation that's available on our blog and that I had actually pitched at the International DB2 Users Group in 2012, is that you can actually set up a replication environment from Oracle to DB2 so that at the point where you're unloading the data from Oracle, you're also recording the deltas or the transactions that are occurring against the database real time. And you queue those transactions up. You move the data that you've unloaded from Oracle into DB2 using a product called the IDMT, the IBM Data Migration Toolkit. While that's running concurrently, you're collecting all the deltas. So for the 5 days where the IDMT tool was running and we did the transition, we were gathering up all the changes that were occurring in the database. Once the IDMT process was done, data unloaded from Oracle, loaded into DB2, validate the referential integrity constraints and all of the other factors in the database. Then we apply the deltas, all of the changes that have been queuing up for the last 5 days. Once the two databases are in sync, and that process took less than a day for the queue up or the true up, then you actually switch your applications. You can make a DNS change or something, but the idea is that in a matter of minutes rather than hours or days, you can redirect applications that are currently running on your website to point to the DB2 database, which is now caught up with the Oracle database. So the migration costs have to be factored into the overall savings. On the earlier chart that you saw, the 3-year savings were something like 24% and the 5-year savings were 35%. Out of that comes the cost of the migration, so moving the data over. But this is a pretty well understood process at this point. The tooling has been exercised at a number of customers, so we can certainly help you do that. So do you want to take education, Kim?
I can certainly take education. I think one of the things, the Fillmore Group has been a long-time IBM authorized training partner, and we believe very much and certainly support customers that believe in making sure that their teams are skilled. IBM has developed some specific training classes that are just for Oracle DBAs, which Frank had talked about earlier, and I believe that IBM as well as the DB2 community are doing a phenomenal job of creating an ecosystem so that new DB2 users feel welcome and have resources available. Certainly this is 2013. Everybody knows that if you need to find something, you can Google it. It's not always the case. It always helps to have somebody mentor you. It always helps to have the formal classroom foundation. But the options are there, and I don't think anyone who is interested in transitioning to DB2 is going to struggle with getting their team skilled up if they're willing to spend some time. And I certainly hope that anyone that works in the technology industry understands that education is an ongoing basis. Things change daily, and we all have to keep up. But I think the ecosystem for DB2 is a lot stronger than it was 5 years ago. So the next thing I'm going to do is a second poll. And the poll is, this question is, which part of the migration process concerns you the most? Very interesting response. 100% of the respondees are saying that application performance is their biggest concern. We have a few people, it's changing a bit, 25% concerned about taking an outage, and as Frank discussed, he worked on a huge migration. They very successfully were able to minimize the downtime, and I think IBM, with some of the replication technologies available today that are extremely fast, very low latency, IBM can address concerns about outages. And we got a couple of people concerned about getting people trained, and I think it's a legitimate concern. I think that one of the things that's been very reassuring to me, Frank mentioned the fact that he was in Columbus yesterday presenting at a users group. It's a users group that's just restarted. One of the reasons it restarted was that a lot of the people there were former Oracle DBAs, and they need the community, they need the support, they need the ongoing education.
So Kim, can I speak to 50? I'm looking at the poll results too, and about 50%, over 50% are saying that application performance after moving is a concern. Can I speak to that for just a second?
Absolutely.
Okay. So your concern is well founded. The MEAT tool will tell you, yes, the syntax of this SQL statement will run successfully, but lived experience is something that might have run in 2 seconds before may now run in 2 minutes, and that's unacceptable. You could have a batch process, you could have an online transaction. There are actually ways to do that. Obviously, regression testing. You're going to do this in a performance environment, and you're going to try to see how well that works. But obviously, there is a cost associated with that as well, and we were in the latest throes of migrating a different Oracle database than the one that I had described before, and there was some remediation going on, building new indexes, building some materialized query tables and things like that to speed access, and then also some code changes, and code changes are expensive and require some more testing. So IBM actually has a very slick tool built on their Guardium technology called Optum Query Capture and Replay. So one of the things that you could do is you can actually run a process on your existing production Oracle database for transactions as they're coming in. So this is basically recording the inserts, updates, and deletes, the SQL, DML that it's occurring against your Oracle database, your native PL SQL and your Oracle SQL dialect, and capture that and then run that against the DB2 database and see how it performs. So you can capture an existing workload today in Oracle and then run that same workload against DB2 and get some very detailed information about timings and how fast they'll run. And you can actually vary the loads. So you can say, well, this is a production load that's running right now on Friday afternoon, but 2 o'clock on Tuesday is our heaviest time of the week. And you can actually increase the speed of the playback. So you can say, let's look at double the volume, double the number of customers. Let's look at peak during Christmas selling season, and you can double or triple. You can actually speed up the time in which the playback occurs, so you can see if there are any kink points in performance. So as we all know, performance is not linear. So at a certain workload, things may work well, and I add 10% more workload, and I peg my CPU at 100%. So that would be a tool as well, in addition to regular regression testing, to aid you in the migration. And this is a tool that's been available for the last year. It was with the Fillmore Group, participated in the beta, and I actually presented on that at IDUG in Orlando in 2013. So that's another way that we can sort of validate that your application is going to perform at an acceptable level before you get too deep into the migration. Back to you, Kim.
Okay. I'm trying to move this guy down. Whoops. All right. My slideshow just went away. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at DB2 features and look at some of the different DB2 versions so that you get a sense of what IBM feels, and certainly the Fillmore Group agrees, that DB2 technology is the best relational database technology available on the market today. IBM recently came out in April, they came out with some announcements about BLU Acceleration, which is some new technology that sits on top of DB2. And I'm going to let Frank go through some of the DB2 technical features and an explanation of the new IBM Enterprise Integrated Systems. I can't say it. And one of the things I wanted to make sure everyone understands when we talk about features and the different versions is that not all DB2 features are available in all versions. Very much like Oracle, if you're buying Workgroup Edition, you may not get all the same features. So packaging is important. If you're looking at pricing, make sure that you know which features you're looking for and what you want to have in the DB2 version you're purchasing. One of the things that I wanted to include in this presentation, I wanted to go through a little bit about the technically how BLU Acceleration works. And I think because we're running a little bit behind schedule because of the sound issues earlier, we're going to skip through this. But I would encourage everyone on the presentation today to go take a look at the announcement video. It is, the technology is phenomenal. It's the numbers that we showed earlier about the speed and the compression savings that customers are getting running DB2. BLU Acceleration has just blown them off the charts. So Frank, can you talk a little bit about the product set or the different features that are in DB2 AESE?
Sure, and again, I'm going to go through this pretty quickly. The BLU Acceleration is probably a presentation in and of itself, but one of the challenges that customers have in, let's say, a data warehouse or an analytics environment is that I may have rows of data in my star schema joined together with my fact table and my dimension tables, and pulling all this data in and getting meaningful analysis. I may be doing a deep dive on one or two fields, but I may have 50 fields in a row in my data warehouse. I may have to do a whole bunch of joins to get data together, which is a lot of overhead, and my analysis may need to occur fairly quickly. I may be an e-commerce site, and I may be trying to match prices with a competitor. And so that sort of analysis doesn't play well with the traditional data warehouse. Data warehouse, where if a query runs in 30 seconds, that may be considered good. I may need to run this in just a second. And so In order to accelerate that, especially when I'm focused on just a few data points, BLU Acceleration really excels because it is another way of representing the data. It basically pivots the data from a row orientation to a column orientation. So I may have all of the data that I need in a single column that I need to analyze, price information, price that people are buying, let's say stock quotes or things like that. I can actually pivot the database so that instead of storing a row on a page and having multiple rows with lots of different attributes, I can have all the data from a single column. So when I read a page into memory, I'm only focusing on that columnar data. That data can be compressed, and because it is relatively homogeneous data, all coming from the same column, I may also be able to get better compression rates. So the BLU Acceleration gives me the ability for columnar orientation, a columnar database, and higher rates of compression. You can see the storage optimization feature, which is IBM's compression technology that comes in either variant, whether I have a row-oriented table or a column-oriented table. The continuous data ingest, that's actually a client feature that's available today, and it even works against older versions of the database. If I install the version 10 client, I can actually get much higher rates of input into the database using the ingest verb from the client. The workload management, being able to manage the consumption of system resources and favor some users and some workloads over others. I don't want batch to seal from transaction processing, but I don't have a batch outage window anymore. I'm running 24/7 by 365. The homogeneous replication feature for DB2, which is queue replication, would allow me, for example, to set up bidirectional replication between two servers, so I have an active-active topology where transactions can run against either one, and I can ensure continuous availability or workload balancing in case one server becomes unavailable. Obviously workload balancing if both servers are available, but continuous availability if one should take a planned or an unplanned outage. The InfoSphere Federation server, the ability to, in a single SQL statement, join together heterogeneous data. Some may be stored in Oracle, some stored in DB2. So within the from clause of an SQL select statement, I could actually refer to tables, some of them stored in Oracle, some of them stored in DB2, that are available within the Advanced Enterprise Server Edition. The InfoSphere Federation server actually extends beyond just Oracle and DB2 to other databases such as Sybase SQL Server, Teradata, but the idea is that I can only, within the Advanced Enterprise Server Edition bundle or packaging, access Oracle and DB2 databases. And then there's lots of tooling. The InfoSphere Data Architect, the ability to model data logically, physically, create OLAP cubing and things like that. The Performance Manager with the extended edition, the ability to monitor my database. This is a legacy IBM product that used to be known as the DB2 Performance Expert. Integration with Query Workload Tuner, so I can identify queries that may be struggling within the environment and be able to get feedback pretty quickly on how I can remediate that, whether I need to create some indexes or make some changes. So you can identify this real time. This becomes very important for two reasons. Number one, I've been in this industry for 35 years. We used to have COBOL programs heavily optimized using static SQL running against DB2 databases on the mainframe, and the application and the database were all on the same platform. Well, that's not the environment that we're in today. We have Java code or applications that were developed using an integrated development environment, Ruby on Rails or something like that, generating SQL statements that the application developer never sees that are then appearing in a database server, and the DBAs are saying, look at this SQL statement, it's performing very poorly. How do I go back to the developer and find the code that was generated by the integrated development environment, all of which is dynamic SQL, which is developed on the fly? So this tooling becomes very important in the environment in which we're running today to get the type of consistent performance you need for your database. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, and do you want to go through these slides in detail, since I think you pretty much covered this, or do you just want to include these for people when they take a look at the deck?
Take a look. We'll go through slide by slide, and if there's anything that I need to pick out, you know, the 30 to 70% storage reduction on the storage optimization feature, the SOF is the compression, and as you can see, it compresses a variety of different types of attributes. So go ahead. The performance optimization feature, this is the Optim Performance Manager that we talked about. So you can actually get real-time analysis of your workloads and how they're performing against the database, and then maybe deploy the workload manager to favor certain workloads over others. So you can make real-time changes based on the characteristics of your business requirements, what's happening in the world. You may you may be an e-commerce retailer. We work with a bunch of different retail sites. Office supplies, mass market retailers, and you may see spikes for a variety of reasons that might or might not have been anticipated in your workload traffic. Things like a new product coming on the market, or a price drop, or something, an announcement that Kanye and Kim like a certain type of clothing line, and that just causes your sales to go through the roof. So you need this sort of real-time monitoring to be able to identify spikes and address them. Go ahead. Mention the federation, and I think that that's pretty clear, the ability to join tables together, so you can go ahead with that. So DB2 versions. So there, I guess the focus is on the one on the bottom, the Advanced Enterprise Server Edition, the one that includes the most feature functionality that I'd gone over in detail on the previous slide. But you can choose. You can choose the amount of functionality that you need. Starting from the top, the Express C is free, and so it's downloadable and available today. We've actually have some customers that have come to us because vendors have embedded Express C in their applications, third-party vendor applications, and Express C is the database they use because it doesn't cost anything. The Express C, the Express, and the Workgroup Edition are all capped at the number of processors and the operating systems on which they run. So if you get to the Enterprise Edition, you're going to get unlimited operating systems, supported operating systems, and unlimited system capacity exploited. And then the Advanced Enterprise Edition includes a lot of the tooling that we mentioned, the queue replication, the POF, performance optimization feature, the SOF, the storage optimization feature. So there is actually a chart that Kim has the link for that gives you the checkmark comparison side by side of what you get with each. And so I would highly recommend, first of all, if you want to download the Express C and sort of kick the tires, again, if you're new to the DB2 world, doesn't cost you anything, just like the Meet tool and the IDMT, the IBM Data Migration Tool, is all are available for free online from IBM. But then also see the feature function comparison. So the licensed versions of the product, the Workgroup Edition, the Enterprise, and the Advanced Enterprise Edition, you can see what bang you get for the buck. Go ahead, Kim.
Absolutely. And I think, Frank, one of the things that we had discussed, IBM won't give you a server to set up as a sandbox for DB2, but they will give you the Meet tool and they will give you DB2 Express C. So it's up to you to find a place to install them, but you're welcome to install them, and it's not going to cost you anything to see how your Oracle applications run on DB2.
The other thing to note in terms of installation, all of these products are available in a virtualized environment. So if you're running a product like VMware and you want to run on an existing server, just to sort of kick the tires, IBM has what is called subcapacity licensing. So you can partition off a server and only use a part of it. So you don't need a separate physical box on which to run this in order to get started.
Good point. The next slide is simply one of the things that IBM acquired Netezza a couple years ago, and I think everyone in the technology world is aware of the movement toward appliances and the cost of integration. When an organization says we're going to build this solution and we have to provision the hardware here and the software here, and then we have to fit it all together, and then we have the application team writing applications that need to be optimized to run on top of the stack we put together, it becomes enormously expensive. So when you have the option of an appliance where everything is pre-built and pre-optimized for you, it can really sometimes, although the appliances typically are not inexpensive, the overall cost can be less. So IBM has released some purpose-built appliances. It's not one size fits all. You have to take a look at what you're trying to accomplish, but IBM has some integrated systems right now that may be, if you're taking a look at moving off Sun and you're going to move over to IBM, if you're going to be looking at hardware as well, I would definitely encourage you to take a look at some of these new systems. For DB2 customers that are not looking at analytic workloads, there is a pure data system that is set up specifically for transactional workloads, and this has been the DB2 heritage, at least for most of the stuff that we've been working with for years, has been OLTP workloads, and I think everyone is very excited about analytics these days. I think analytics probably gets more buzz than anything else in the technology world, but for retailers and other organizations that are mostly still focused on transactions, IBM is definitely optimizing systems just for transactions.
Right, Kim, and this is the heritage, the pure data system for transactions is the heritage PureScale. If you've heard about PureScale before, it is the shared disk implementation of DB2 for Linux, Unix, Windows, which is the equivalent of, if you're familiar with DB2 for ZOS, the parallel sysplex, the data sharing environment. So if I have a single node go down, I still am, this is a load balancing and continuous availability play, so I don't lose my transaction processing. Go ahead.
And one of the things that this particular slide is basically one of the reasons that IBM is designing some of these systems is that they are looking at Oracle as a competitor right now, and so they're looking at places where Oracle is weak, and they are trying to make sure that IBM is addressing all these weaknesses, and we're overcoming whatever weaknesses and challenges customers are facing. So we're ready for another poll question. This poll question is up right now, and it's basically asking what information you need. I know that we're trying to cover, there's so much information that customers and Oracle customers need to consider when they're making a migration decision. Well, gosh, Frank, I'm really disappointed. All these people want more information. I thought that we
You thought we covered the waterfront, huh?
It sure seemed like a lot.
Interesting, all of the above has the lead right now. 50% say I need more information on all those things, and we'd certainly be happy to provide it. We're talking about relatively I don't want to say abstract, but sort of generic. You want to find out how this fits in your environment. There are lots of decisions that you need to make based on your particular situation, and we'd be happy to help you with that.
Absolutely. I hope that the gist of the message people are getting from this presentation today is that if you're looking at an option to get off of Oracle and you're looking at what's going to deliver better value, what you're going to be happier with, what's going to give you better technical features and functionality, that IBM not only has DB2, feels that DB2 is a better competitor than Oracle right now, but also that we feel confident that it's also far less expensive. So yeah, 44% said all of the above, and we certainly invite you to ask questions. We will certainly be willing to help you get some information. I'm going to just go quickly through some slides, and I would invite people that are on the presentation to take a look at these a little more closely and do some research on your own. These are obviously IBM marketing slides, but these are percentages, these are case studies, these are numbers that IBM has validated. There are a lot of customers that have made the switch, and they've been successful. There are customers that are willing to give testimonials. If you need to speak to a customer, if you want a reference account, we will find you one. there is a particularly large multinational banking corporation that Frank worked with, who I think he name dropped earlier in the presentation. But Frank, do you want to talk a little bit about how these guys started with one database and how they are migrating through the organization now?
Sure, sure. What happened was, and I used the name before only because they've appeared publicly at IBM events, right. So I don't think it's a deep dark secret. But this particular customer had a lot of publicity that they didn't like in October of 2010. They had a serious outage for a couple of days. Their online banking system was not available, and it was a transformational moment in the organization's history because they take customer service very seriously, and customers were not able to access their funds online. They were not able to pay their bills. And so throughout the organization, they've made a commitment that to isolate the number of customers that can be impacted by any type of outage, whether it's hardware, communication, software, database, electricity, you name it. It's really permeated what they do. They actually have a unit that validates any new customer-facing application initiatives. And the germ of all this was the fact that they had this outage on the Oracle database, and what happened was they had suffered some log corruption, and the log corruption was replicated to a backup, so that their backup was corrupted as well, and they couldn't bring the database back online. So they have throughout the organization, not only in a transaction processing environment, but also for a number of different lines of business, including data warehousing and other types of analytics. They are looking at they are actively moving their workloads from Oracle to DB2, and as they grow as an organization, as they become more confident, as they have more learned experience, they're actually accelerating this migration. So almost 50% of their transaction volume flows through this site, so they went from 0 to 50 in about 9 months for all of their databases for this particular application. And so the consolidation happened in a number of different areas. They consolidated orders of magnitude numbers of servers. They just had rack upon rack of physical racks of servers consolidated down to IBM P770. So they took the big leap. They changed operating systems from Solaris to AIX. They changed server from Sun to Power. They changed to IBM System P. They changed just a bit even their networking technology, everything. They just did a complete rebuild, and because they were at the point in the useful life of these systems where they were probably going to need to be swapped out or changed anyway, and they decided to place all their chips on IBM, and it turned out well for them. They use IBM's DB2 HADR, High Availability Disaster Recovery, and queue replication, so that there are 3 servers that are available. The primary server where transaction processing occurs, secondary server that uses HADR, and then a third server that uses queue replication for a hot site that is hundreds of miles away. So they can suffer a complete data center outage. The tsunami comes and washes away the data center, and they can still perform customer-facing application processing. So go ahead. I'm sorry. You go, Kim.
I was just going to say, this is basically just covering the same material. This is basically the same customer.
Yep.
These slides for the end too, I would also invite everyone to take a look at. These are more financial slides, more performance slides, and there's some other stuff toward the end of the presentation that explains a little bit more about IBM's statistical justification and from a financial side as well as a performance side. And again, don't forget, there is a hardware component that can be integrated into this if you're looking to replace your servers. And to close out, I'd basically like to talk a little bit about what the next steps are for anyone who's interested in moving. I would invite you to review this information and go over the slide deck. It's going to be posted on our blog. Take a look at it, go through it with your team, and see if you can get some consensus if folks are interested. I would then suggest that we do a conference call. Frank is willing to do a gratis conference call with anyone that's interested in talking about the migration process. He can talk to them about the bank that he worked with. We can certainly get some references together if that's something you're interested in as well. Working on the migration plan. The migration plan is obviously going to be something that is a one-time cost, but it is something, and it is something that needs to be planned pretty carefully. We can work with you on that migration plan. IBM has resources that can help you with migration as well, and I think getting that defined is certainly probably the biggest unknown for most organizations, and we'll integrate into that your education plan as well. And from that point, you can break free from Oracle. So my last question, the last poll question is, what can we do to help you with the next steps? Everyone that's attending this session knows where we're going to post the presentation. I will send you an email as well. You will have contact information for Frank as well as for me. If there's anyone else that we can try to connect you with, we would be happy to. And we certainly invite you to let us know where things stand and let us know how we can move things along, whether it's now or, you know, in 6 months or in 2 years. And it sounds like most people are looking at this. They're sort of on the outside edge and just getting ready to do some research. One of the things I would recommend to everyone that's on here as well, IBM typically hosts what they call the Break Free Forum at their annual conference in Las Vegas called the IBM Information on Demand Conference, or IOD. IBM invites customers that are assessing and evaluating the move to DB2, and it's usually it's sort of an exclusive party at the IOD conference. If you're interested, please get in touch with me and I will see if we can get you invited. And that's the end of our session. I really appreciate everyone for taking the time, and my apologies again for the sound problems at the beginning. If you have any questions, if you'd like to submit them via the chat, Frank and I will stay on for the next couple minutes, and we'd be happy to address them.
Thank you, everyone. That was great.
Thanks, Frank, and thanks for all your help with the technical side. And again, to everyone that's online, if you're interested and have technical questions, Frank is a DB2 Gold consultant, and I know he'd be happy to help.
You bet.